Oh yeah.
Here we go. We didn't discuss this, but Jinsha, do you want to go? Hey everyone, welcome to AI Amigo Show. We didn't discuss this beforehand because Marina's usually the person here,
Yeah.
Jinsha,
Yeah.
organizes us, and we're not organized here.
Very much. We're taking it easy today.
Yeah, we're taking it easy. Hey everyone, my name is James. I'm here with Jin Chao. Marina's gone. AI Amigos Show. We want to welcome you to today's broadcast, which we're going to be talking about the AI roles and responsibilities
Yeah,
and
the
things like
jobs.
that.
All right.
Job,
Basically, from
yeah,
the very start of the AI or machine learning, right? We're talking
yeah,
about from the very start, from the data, what are the position, all the way to AI research scientist, what they do, and basically the misunderstanding between positions. We see plenty of those uh, job requirement. They're looking for one thing, but the job description asks for the other thing.
yeah.
So
I've seen some I've seen some roles out there advertised in child like, and they ask for like a data analyst, right?
mhm,
LinkedIn always sends me this stuff, and I'm always interested to see like what are they looking for, right? And I look at all this stuff, and I'm like, no, that's data engineer. No, that's a data scientist. No,
mhm,
no, no, that's a machine learning engineer. Like so, I mean, obviously because people that are not in the industry as such don't know, right? Would you agree
yep,
with that? I mean, someone that's let's say in HR, obviously that's not their role, but even like organizations that are even in tech are
mhm.
really not sure.
Yeah, for sure. And it is confusing as well because they are using completely different tech stack, and then job responsibility is totally different as well. I mean, to a lot of people doesn't have technical background, um, just to see the name is like, the job title is one word different, so it's
Yeah,
hard to tell, right?
yeah, because you have data analyst, data scientist, data engineer, like what other, data product manager,
Yeah.
uh, head of data. There's like you just put the word data and then you add everything behind it. Now, I particularly like that because I'm a data guy. I love data,
Yeah.
but there's so many different things that you can do with data. I think with AI, I mean, I know that there's like this explosion with AI, but like AI's been around for a long, long time.
Hmm.
But I know there's a lot of talk about people losing jobs and things like that because of AI. But I always say data needs to be there. I was watching someone on TikTok yesterday. Was talking about this that there because there was we were a couple of years ago or about a year ago. Remember we were running out of data to train
Hmm.
models, and so then
Yeah.
they started using synthetic data, and then we started having this model collapse as it was called because it's creating the synthetic data. And so what they found is if they took a bit of data and then they created synthetic data with that data, and then they
Hmm.
kept a bit of that original data and then created synthetic data and took some of that original. This original data seems when they create more and more synthetic data,
Hmm.
tends to anchor it as such that it becomes the data is better.
Hmm.
But I mean, ultimately, and you think, and this is what I was saying about the TikTok. Someone was talking about again the topic of model collapse is coming up because a lot of the content online now is being generated by AI.
Yeah.
So so it's not it's not human content. The content it's artificially generated content, and it doesn't strive to do. I mean, it's a great parrot. It just repeats what we say. It's not good at, and it does it very quickly, and it can
Yeah, I
compute and it
tell
can
you
do.
what, it will be very positive for one thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it depends if you're 4.0, 5.0 doesn't care about you. 4.0
Oh,
is,
no, you did
GPT
very
4.0.
well. You're brilliant. I would be a better place if we all use AI generated data.
Well, the 4.0 did that, but the 5.0, no, not at all. Not at all.
So let's start from uh, the data, right, all the
Yeah.
way to AI research scientist. What would you categorize as about six or seven different jobs? Right?
Well, the data analyst, right? We start with that one, right? So
Yeah.
that's the foundation of the data stack, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of tools would a data analyst use? Well, I mean, really, the basis of everything because it's data is
Yeah.
QL, right?
Yeah.
Has to be
So
able to
what
get.
does what does the data analyst do basically? I mean, that was the question. What do they do? Kind of, so they using SQL, or Excel, because wherever out the customer or they store the data, they have to basically grab the data and sort it and put it on some sort of like a Power BI, Tableau or
Yeah, I
something
was
to.
going to say you use tools like Tableau, Power BI, things. Because what you're doing then is you're making visualizations or you're trying to tell a data story. So what does the data
Okay.
say? And this is what the data is saying, um, and which is good. I mean, but all of that's just descriptive analytics. It's just you're describing what happened. So like let's say for
Okay.
example,
Yes.
you're in
Yes.
an organization and let's say the organization sells cars,
Okay.
right? And then basically you're saying, well, what were car sales last year? What's the trend of car sales?
Yeah.
But you don't look into, so that's just very descriptive. It doesn't, you're not
Yeah.
looking into,
Okay.
okay, what is car sales next week or next
Okay.
month
So
or the
you
next
can
month?
you're saying data analytic is kind of historian and tells a story about what happened before in a
Yes.
pretty nice pictures.
A
They grab
postmortem,
all different
a
things.
postmortem, if you will.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So they were their little brushes, find out different side what's going on, and
Yeah.
uh, collect them together and analyze them and tell the story.
Yes.
So I mean, the next level we know, like a lot of people know, is the data engineers.
Yeah.
So from my understanding, data engineer is doesn't really do a lot with what we're thinking about data analytics and data scientists. It's basically a job to building pipelines, preparing the data, transform the data for data
ETL.
science. Yeah, for analytic or data science to do. Do you agree with that, or is
I would, yeah. I mean, because I mean, when we talk about, let's say, big data,
Mm.
when you start small amounts of data, when you say, okay, well, if that's in, let's say, an Excel or the data set, and by the way, for those who are listening, Excel is not a database. Some people think that, Jinchao.
it could go to 63,000 lines? Why not? The
But if you
rows,
do
right?
CSV, then all of a sudden now you've got a million. But what do you call it? Is so what they work with tools like Excel and you could things like in database. But when you start getting into like big data, right, big queries that can, and then you start talking about like data that's in real time. So you
Yeah,
start, so you look at the volume, the velocity of the data, how where you're going to store it, what's the best way to do this. And so you and I were talking a little bit earlier about this.
yeah,
When you start looking like Kafka or Apache Hive,
yeah,
or there's a lot of those different ones that you
yeah,
have to map and reduce the data and store it in a way so that way you can get the data very quickly.
yeah,
And what kind of tools, are you going to save it into like some kind of S3 bucket, or are you going to use various different storage methods to store the data to be able to retrieve the data without crashing the database or the server? And that's what the data engineer does. It's just making sure the flow of the data, the ETL is smooth and doesn't bring things down.
yeah. In a way, is I think it was a data engineer sits more with like a cloud guy or cloud engineer, so they kind of understand as well. They doesn't necessarily know how to do data analytic or data science or predict data. They do definitely do know SQL. They know pipeline very much. They probably needed to have some level of DevOps skills to build those pipelines.
Yeah.
Their final customer, when I understand it, is probably data analyst or data science, a scientist guy. So they feed the data to your perspective. Oh, you said, okay, I need this, this, and this, and he said, this is the database. That's the database you can find. He and you give him the blueprint. He built the pipeline to feed it, right?
Yeah.
Daily, monthly, or real lifetime, like you said. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, one of the part I was thinking right there, like data wrangling, or when you look at data cleaning,
Yeah.
who's going to clean the data because that maybe not get in the best way, and things
Yeah.
like that.
No, we don't clean data.
Well, that's good. I know where you're leading to the next role. In the next role, which is data scientist,
Yeah. What do you do, James?
you expect the data to be clean when it comes into my hands. It's
Uh-huh.
ready to go into the machine learning model to train a model. It's ready
Yeah.
to go. All right, and then then you start doing, because I mean, if you look at the data itself, so if you okay, so we talked about already the descriptive analytics, and so data science would say, okay, what I want to do is I want to do predictive analytics. I want to predict what the cells are going to be next, and then we
Yeah.
can even go even further into prescriptive analytics. So if we look at like a chart, so we say, okay, sales have dropped. So that the data analyst goes, well, here's the chart of the sales, and sales in the last 12 months have dropped.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's the next question? Well, why has this happened?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So then we look for causality. And so that's when you start looking at, causality, and also how can we fix it. So this is
Mm-hmm.
the prescriptive
Yeah.
the prescriptive aspect of it, and that's what a data scientist does. And so a lot of data science is science because you hypothesize things, and
Yeah.
then you go and you run your data through a machine learning model, and you run statistical tests. So a lot of stats involved. Is there any statistical significance between these two? What's the distribution of my data? How do I
Mm-hmm.
normalize the data? How do I standardize the data to where we into more of a normal distribution? So we have to transform the data. So when the data comes to you at that stage, you're expecting, is there missing values? I mean, are we going to impute that, or what do we need to do? And so,
Mm-hmm.
that's where the data scientist is thinking of those things.
So data science, in another word, I think is really entry for you going to the door of machine learning and AI, talking about algorithm, discover algorithm, and all those different statistical analysis thing now. Mm, And but for I mean, like for a lot of company, they might squeeze a data analyst with kind of data scientist, because data science needed to clean the data as well, all that, if they are really limited on the budget. But there are different jobs, because data science does a lot of real machine learning stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, so people have to understand, but data engineer, I think, is totally different circle. Do you feel
Yes,
that?
definitely, 100%. I mean, 100%, because okay, as a data scientist, should you be aware of? Am I aware of, like I've mentioned to you, like Hive and Kafka, and things along those lines, where you would use that. I know about PySpark, so which is
Mm,
Spark, which you use PySpark, which is distributing resources so that you can get predictions in near real time. So do we do batching, or how do we get this? How much resources do we need? How do we distribute it amongst the resources we have? I'm aware of those things, but then when you start getting into the nitty gritty of the deployment of it, and now that's when we start talking about, okay, so a data engineer needs to do that, but equally, like a lot of data scientists use work out of a Jupyter notebook, right?
yeah. I'm glad you mentioned production, right?
Yeah.
I think the one thing about data engineering is not just the working with data science or analyst. So they do a lot of those. They they basically deal with data. So it could be in Netflix or whatever, the data transfer from one region to a different region or whatever. That's their job. Not necessarily working has to work one to one with data scientists, but it's just part of their job to maybe data science has a requirement. Sorry.
So then what happened on Monday with AWS that that's supposed to happen where it goes from distributed? Sorry. I got on a note there when you said that. I thought, well, what happened to Amazon on East? Anyway.
Yeah, and then when you talk about production, that's another name dropped in here. It's called machine learning engineers.
Yeah.
So from my research, what they're saying is the clear cut of machine learning engineer is deploy, scale, and maintain ML models in production. So this position will be his key job is deploy, monitoring, and maintain the what you created in the production.
Yes.
So yeah. So
So when you do that, John, right? So you run this in a Jupyter notebook, or you run this on a Python script, whatever it may be, and you run this on your computer. All works well. You train a really good model. You've done all of the cross validation. You validated everything statistically and all that. And then I was like, okay, your manager comes and says, well, that's brilliant. We want to put that into production now. And it's like, okay. So then you have to save your model, right? And then you
yeah,
have to put the model into production and say, okay, so the data that goes in, and when you save the model, the data that went in, so if you had, let's say, 10 features, 10 features have to come in. And so now we're talking about automation, right? So you automate this in, and so it can then predict. So let's say it can predict scores, it can predict prices, it can predict, like I mentioned earlier, about selling cars. So
yeah,
we get a new car in. Okay, how much is this car? How do we value this car? And you say, okay, well, this is the value of the car. The model comes back, but then it's like, well, there's two things there. Saying, well, can you give me a reason why you've come to this conclusion? Number one, so
mhm,
what features, what's gone for in its favor, and what's gone against it. So maybe it could be high mileage or kilometerage, however you say that. It could be a luxury car. It could be whatever that brings the price up or down. But you
yeah,
need something that you can input that data, and then it gives you a price prediction, right? So you say,
mhm,
okay, well, that's great if you have one car, one auto dealership. But what if you have hundreds? How are we going to put that? How are we going to scale that, right? And so now instead of having, three salespeople, now you have 3,000 salespeople that are
yeah,
looking for a price. And so that's going to definitely crash the system. And that's where that machine learning engineer comes in and says, okay, we're gonna look at what our production line is. What's our ecosystem that we have, right? And how do we put this into? Now I'm going to use the word pipeline, but it's not a data pipeline. It's a pipeline of machine learning, right?
yeah.
And so you want to optimize with little latency that the people can get it, and it's closer to software engineering than it is to statistics, basically.
Definitely. I think anything within what I feel like in this job description of data and machine learning, if you have engineer in there, it somehow pivot from what you really machine learning do. And then the next one is quite interesting as well. I think it's broader role than data scientist because it's called AI engineer or AI specialist. So what it does from the description I did, I'm just reading here. It's called and build and integrate broad AI systems to solve complex problems. So his key contribution is modeling and deploying broader than machine learning, and his key core technical skill is Python, C++, deep learning, AI framework like TensorFlow or PyTorch.
Okay.
So I do think this is the kind of like architecting role, kind of somehow architect the stuff, the AI systems. And it could be like data science is creating a model, or it could be just generally speaking, LLMs. Could that be right? So that's how I feel.
Well, equally, there's this term called data drift, and
Hmm.
so basically, so you've trained your so when you're training your models, you want the lowest. If it's in regression, you want your lowest error, or if you're doing classification, you want your highest accuracy score, right? But
Yeah.
over a period of time, so what you've done is you've trained your model on a data point. And so let's say, for example, stock market. That's my background, right? So
Yeah.
you trade it on the stock market, and you trade it to a certain date, and then you say that model's good, and you run it into production. But then what happens is things begin to change. The structure of the data begins to change, and this is what's called data drift. And all of a sudden, that model that you trained is not good. It's
Hmm.
not working as well as it had. So and so this is where it was called model drift. So someone has to be watching that and going and testing it and verifying, is it as good as it was before, or is there some problems? And then what you have to do is what we say is, when you look for the error, you want the lowest. So as I mentioned earlier, so you're looking for the global minima, and it gets stuck in a local minima. Why? Because your data's is outdated, I guess, if you want to say, for lack of a better phrase. And so
Mm.
you need new data. And so then we start talking about, well, okay, well, how often do you retrain your models? That depends. Do you retrain it every week, every month, every year, every day, every hour? Those models have to be retrained. So it's not a very straightforward, easy answer. And you can see, even like with us kind of decomposing this, you and I, right now, is we can see that there's a lot to it, and you can see why you need different roles. That you
Yeah,
can't just expect a data analyst or a data scientist or a data engineer or a machine learning engineer to do all these things. It's just not
yeah.
going
I think, yeah, I think the AI engineer from the research I did is hardly mentioned data.
to happen. Yeah,
It's broader role of machine learning engineer, but his
you can see where
core,
my bias is.
yeah, his core is basically solving specific complex business problem with AI, with implement AI model or algorithms to tailor to the organization's need. So that's the AI engineer.
Machine
Yeah,
learning engineer, and then you have ML ops now as well. That's another one that's kind
yes,
of,
that's that I understand. That I
yeah,
understand because
DevOps.
operation,
Yeah.
yeah, the operation side of the machine learning is a big thing. It's like in our company, we have a cloud ops engineer. The cloud engineer itself is to do something, but operation side of the things it needed to be. Some big company like I mentioned Netflix or whatever, they have huge amount of data everywhere. To transfer those, they have hundreds, maybe hundreds of pipeline. To operate that, you need someone to have a basic level of machine learning understanding on how does those kind of operation pipeline, CI/CD pipeline works. So
Yeah.
their core skill from my research is completely different. They kind of have to know machine learning, cloud, AWS, GCP, and all that CI/CD pipeline. But the most important that most of them needed to have Kubernetes, Docker, kind of um, technical background to manage a modern
GitHub.
ML infrastructure. Yeah,
GitHub. You need a bit of GitHub. One I was seeing there, that's an interesting one, is data ops.
day ops,
Data ops, yeah. So I know there's
data
DevOps,
ops. Yeah.
ML ops, and now there's data ops that's starting to emerge. And that makes a lot of sense if you think about it, particularly when we talk about data engineer. You need it that they're more into the data ops side of things. Would you not agree?
So what does data ops do on a high level? What does that? Is that kind of like connected developers with database team, with machine learning and data scientists?
Let's see. Let me ask here, because that was one that
Yeah,
I was looking at with 5.0 here.
yeah. Because originally, I think that's what it is, but that's my guess. Where the DevOps idea came from is I witnessed it at first hand. Is because data infrastructure guys speaking language software engineering doesn't understand, and talking about how many CPU you want, how many RAMs, where do you put those, and all that. But software
Mhm.
engineering just want to run. It run on my computer, but it doesn't run on a server. What's going on? That's our famous line. I'm not being ain't funny, but that's what it is. So the DevOps actually to connect them to work faster. That's where the pipeline started.
The
Software guys,
CI/CD. Yeah.
yeah, software guys, you don't need to worry about that. I have the DevOps guy has knowledge of infrastructure and has the knowledge of how you code run as well. So connect the both with pipelines and they run those pipelines. So everything deployed really quickly. So I think there might be some level of that in the data ops. Would that
Yeah,
be?
so looking here, there's 6 functions it's given. Data pipeline automation, which we've talked
Yeah.
about, which is ETL, we talked about already. Data quality monitoring. So basically,
Hmm.
that
It's new one.
if the data starts going out of whatever, sets up alerts, tests, and validation rules to detect broken pipelines or anomalies early. If something happens with the data.
Yeah.
Version control for data and code. So definitely the GitHub we were talking about, and database as well. Um, the version control, which is very, very interesting for the data itself.
Yeah.
Collaboration and continuous delivery, which was the CI/CD we talked about, which is
Mhm.
continuous integration and continuous development. observer, observ, oh, observability. They're observing
Ability.
uh, governance, implement lineage tracking, metadata management, complying with GDPR, HIPAA, any kind of the California protection code, things like that. And then this is one we mentioned already: performance optimization. Ensure data systems scale efficiently as data volumes begin to grow.
Okay. And then
So equally, yourself, when you go to the optimized stuff, you still then comes into the governance, right? Because you can then introduce vulnerabilities.
mhm.
Sorry, Jinchan, I cut you there. What were you saying?
No, I was just thinking like a machine learning engineer, AI engineer, ML ops engineer probably sit on this data ops basically,
Yeah.
but with a little bit more governance and security side. Maybe there's a data security engineer, maybe something somewhere, right?
I
Need to
mean,
be
years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, this is about 2 or 3 years ago, and he was talking about data stewards.
okay.
Data stewards. I was like, data steward. It makes sense. When you're to steward, you're to take care of something. So these are data people that take care of things and to
No,
ensure that.
you need an engineer to get a little bit more pay. Steward is not good. So data.
Especially like right, fair enough.
Oh,
Yeah. So
and then
that's
the
that's
last row. Sorry to cut in, James. I'm
about
just wanted to mention the last row, the on on the top of the pyramid. I feel like it's called AI research scientist.
no. Senior data scientist is the top of the pyramid. Come on.
Really? Okay. I moved the order now. I moved the order now. But I compare. It does. It does everything data science do, but
Yes.
it has one more. It's called research.
well,
In there,
that's
seriously.
well, that's an interesting point because what you're saying there is like, and even when we're talking about this, you can see that there's a lot of overlap between the roles,
Yeah.
but equally you can see why you need each role because even in that overlap can be very big. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or very small. That you
Hmm.
say, well, that overlap, we need to find someone to fill. Because when you look at like a Venn diagram of data science, it's like it talks about like you need to know about statistics and you know about visualization and you need to know about coding and you need to so it says you need to more statistics than a programmer and you know more about programming than a statistician
Hmm.
that you kind of sit in that middle as a data scientist.
Yeah, but generally speaking, like that's the golden rule of in IT. You know more about the one role, you can do multiple roles, and the role will be created, and then you get the highest money at that moment.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Strike when you yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the thing. Like before was DevOps, because nobody knows. It's different career paths. You go into the infrastructure, go into the room, right, dealing with the stack and all that, and then you go into software and you don't ever touch the server. And so at that time, my background, because I was trained as Java developer, I work with network and I worked in the server room as well.
I'm sorry to hear that
Sorry to hear
you're a
that.
Java developer.
And that was both the skill. It doesn't need to me to write Java, but pick up program language pretty quickly. Like you can
Yeah.
run PowerShell, Bash, and all that you have. So that's picking up. So that DevOps was really big. And now you need to know a little bit more of other stuff. And there's data pipeline engineer is big demand, right? Data engineer, AI engineers, they're all in big demand. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I think when we talk about CI/CD, we need CL, which is continuous learning. We need to be continuous learning because things are changing quite
Hmm.
rapidly, as we've seen, and we have to
Yeah,
be able to,
yeah,
to to adapt to these changes.
definitely. That's why I'm learning plumbing.
Then we need their plumbers are getting paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
They're
But
getting paid a
you
lot.
see the oh well, this is a sidetrack, but you see that I recently see a news. It says Australia, a lot of people are picking up manual labor jobs now, and trying to learn it, plumbing, electrician, all that sort of job.
Well,
Now
yeah,
because
tradesmen.
AI, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because
So
nobody wants to do those kinds of jobs. But I was today. I heard a TikTok, and it was this girl. She did. I don't know her name now. I don't remember her name. And she said someone asked me, what's the worst thing I've ever done for money?
Yeah.
And you're thinking, oh no, what is she going to say? And she said, coding in PHP. And then the person says to her, okay, you win.
So yeah, so we have to drive our show very successful. Otherwise, it could be landing with no job. This show could be like start from ABC to learn plumbing with Jen Chow, learn carpentry with James. You know,
the,
you never
the
know.
Plumbing Amigo show.
Yeah, you never know. Seriously. So yeah.
Yeah, I
So
definitely can see that. Yeah, but I mean, really, when we look at this here, that we look at there's different tooling and there's different things that can be done, but ultimately, it's your critical thinking skills and your knowledge that's going to differentiate you in an industry and a job role, right?
hmm
And and really, understanding these processes can help you future proof, your role, your job. But the jobs are going to change in the next 5, 10 years. It's going to be very different.
yeah, definitely. I feel like I definitely hit on the right step for the last 10 years about cloud and other stuff. And me and Marina was really feeling like good time. I remember when I was telling my managers as I go into AI, I learned master AI. This is 2021. So why are you learning now? I said I wanted to support whoever wanted to run AI and stuff. I understand what's the infrastructure needs. So
Yeah,
that was quite lucky, I consider, to
yeah.
understand a little bit, but I didn't use it at all.
Not
But
yet, anyway. Well, no, you use it. Yeah, you're using it.
a tiny bit. And then yeah, and then from the next one, nobody knows if I can hit the right hit the nail. What's the word? Hit the nail with a hammer again,
Hit the nail on the head.
hit the nail on the head.
Yeah,
So it's hard. It's really hard. The speed of it and everything, right? So
that's why you want to go into plumbing. I know.
no, I know. Yeah. So I would like to fix the stuff in my house, not calling other one. So that
I
could
can
be
tell you, as you know, I just bought a new home, and let me tell you, I'm glad I'm a bit handy. I've got tools and know how to do things because I know, like, I'm part of the group of the owners in this house, the state here. And I told Melissa, I don't know how they can do it because there's a lot of it's basic stuff in child like.
uh,
So you think about you buy the bathroom. Well,
uh,
where's the toilet roll holder? What about the towel holder? Hooks
uh,
for hand towels and things like that. Like and drilling through tile and drilling through or through plaster, and how is that going to be held up? And like
yeah.
these are like basic things, but like for someone who doesn't know, they don't know this. What do they
Yeah.
do?
Especially a new house, you need to find your stew finder or electric line finder. Otherwise, oh, in the pipe.
Don't
Yeah.
worry, I have life insurance in show. Okay.
All
so
right.
so that's us done, I think, Bin Chow.
Yeah.
Also, we didn't mention at the beginning of the show, but I want everyone to know that we are sponsored by Tequila AI.
Yeah.
And if you need any kind of the tools or some of the things that we've been discussing, Tequila
hmm
AI, you need to have a chat with them. They're really good people.
Yeah. I know they have products coming out to analyze firewall logs, and yeah, looking forward to that. And
Quite a few
yeah,
apps, I think, or a couple of apps anyway. Not quite a few, but a
yeah,
couple of
yeah,
apps. Yeah.
yeah. We
So
can't review too much, and they probably do their announcement.
they have they're definitely
Oops, sorry.
yeah. Yeah. So next week, Marina should be back next week, and so next week we'll have a very interesting topic. You'll have to find out later in the week. We don't want to reveal because you have to attend to find out. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you. Thank you, Jin Chao. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye now. Enjoy. All right.